good. Just a comment on my co-candidate's speech and statement from a few moments ago. I think Mark will agree with me. This is indeed what a real man looks like. I'm going to tell you quickly about the
You're
kind
more
of...
of a real man than I am.
You know. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the dominoes, long shot dominoes that brought me here today. I'm a Jersey boy and a rapper, so please don't hold that against me. But I started rapping when I was a junior in high school, and I was 4'4", and I had a Napoleon complex that was about 8 feet tall. So I started battling people in the lunchroom all of a sudden, just because why not? And so after high school, I didn't go the traditional route, and fast forward about 10 years, I was in Atlanta in the ATL, independent rapper, and who had been just chasing fame and fortune and the proverbial record deal that really doesn't exist anymore, for about 10 years. And I woke up one day with a broken arm. I hadn't fallen, I hadn't been hit, I hadn't gotten in any fights. It was just a broken arm. I went in, they didn't even do an x-ray. They saw a 25-year-old kid walk in, told me I had rotator cuff torn or bursitis, gave me some painkillers, and sent me home. 3 weeks later, I found myself at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City, picking out what kind of Metaport was going to go into my chest for 8 months of chemotherapy. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma of bone. So, over that 8 months, hip-hop saved my life. I wrote, recorded, and produced an album. During that time, I went back to school to NYU. I was working 3 jobs as a sound engineer. Fast forward 3 years, and I get offered the record deal I've been chasing for 10 years. I dropped out of school at NYU, I quit my 3 jobs, and I left a pretty, prospectively good relationship 3,500 miles back east, because that's what you do when you're offered the deal that you've been chasing for 10 years. But I wasn't sure about it. I jumped off the cliff without knowing whether I was going to land face first or grow wings. And my first show out here was at a foundation event, where I always bring CDs with me, copies of the album, and I met a young man named Chris who had been battling cancer for 15 years, and I met him, I spoke to him, shook his hand, heard his story, gave him a CD, and that was that. I went home, and went about my business. 6 months later, I had a show, performance set up at Rady Children's Hospital, and I go walking into this room with my little boombox and no microphone, thinking, I'm going to perform for about 12 kids. And I get in there, and the room has got about 75 kids in it. So I get up in the middle of the room in front of these 75 kids, and before I start, the main nurse who organizes this group had everybody stand up and say their name, their diagnosis, and a little bit of information about them. So all of a sudden, I see Chris, who is the gentleman I met 6 months earlier. He stands up and he says, my name is Chris. I've been battling cancer for 15 years, and I met Urbalist 6 months ago. He gave me a copy of his CD, and now I listen to it every night before I go to bed because it makes me want to fight hard. Chris passed away about 3 weeks ago, and it's still very raw, and his nickname was the Hulk, because he truly was the Hulk. But, I didn't realize that I was really meant to do this or feel the same way that I did when he stood up and said that until this morning, when I had no idea, but Facebook actually randomly informed me that today is his birthday. So next year I'm going to be standing here naming the Hulk Smash Research Grant. And, team got your back.
If you got me, then I got you. There ain't nothing I will not do. You gotta get through to stop you. So keep your head up, cause I got to knock. If you got me, then I got you back. We got you covered, buddy, we're on top of that. No lie, gotta give it to you on this fact. So we're weak, keep your head up, so got your back. We got your back. Oh yeah, yo, lend me your attention, put a hand in your ear for a request from the potential man of the year. Don't act like you missed the memo, like I've not been clear. Without LLS, I would not be here. A blood cancer alumni, and I was so sick with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 006. Now it's 2012, over 6 years later, and I'm still up in remission as of this year, player. But enough